Tonight, we're going to talk about a traffic accident, whether it was a person hitting a ghost or a ghost hitting a person. If you're not particularly brave, please turn on the lights while listening. The protagonist of this story is a buddy of mine. Last year, during the National Day holiday, he was driving on the highway and got stuck in traffic so bad it felt like a parking lot. He was desperate to pee, practically bursting, and just wanted to find a spot to relieve himself. This simple, ordinary act sparked the bizarre tale that followed. It happened when my friend was driving back to his hometown during the long holiday. He said that ever since that day, his dashcam kept malfunctioning. It broke multiple times, and even new ones didn't last long before breaking again. Eventually, he just gave up on using one altogether. Naturally, I was curious and asked him what happened. He didn't hold back and told me the whole strange experience. For the sake of the story's flow, I'll retell it from his first-person perspective to recreate the events as they unfolded. To travel farther and save some money, I set off right after work on September 30th. It was just past 5 p.m. when I hit the highway. About 100 kilometers from home, I ran into a massive traffic jam. I don't know if there was a major accident ahead or what, but the cars were crawling along at a snail's pace. I was stuck, antsy as hell, partly because I was eager to get home, but mostly because I really had to pee. As the car inched forward, I spotted a highway exit up ahead. Without a second thought, I took it, pulled off, and dashed into a nearby patch of woods. After relieving myself, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted, pure bliss. Back in the car, I thought, the highway's a mess right now. If I get back on, who knows how long I'll be stuck. So I pulled up the map on my phone to see if there were any back roads nearby. Sure enough, I found one, a winding little path that could bypass the traffic jam. As a seasoned driver with over a decade of experience, I tackled all kinds of tricky roads. No hesitation, I headed straight for it. After driving a few hundred meters, though, I started to regret it. The road was narrow, more like a single-lane dirt track up a mountain. It kept getting tighter, the surface uneven and bumpy. My car swayed left and right like it was dancing. Thankfully, there were no major potholes, so I could still move forward. But the grass on both sides grew thicker and denser, brushing against the car, forcing me to slow down. After a while, the road narrowed even more. Weeds in the middle showed it wasn't used much. I started to get nervous. It was an unfamiliar route with a slight incline, like I was heading up the mountain. One wrong turn, and I might hit a dead end. I decided to look for a spot to turn around, but after a few minutes of driving, I couldn't find one. The road was too tight, and low-hanging branches started scraping my windshield. I didn't dare go further, so I stopped, pulled up the map, and zoomed in. I'd only made it a quarter of the way through this mountain road. Maybe I should back up, I thought. But when I glanced in my rearview mirror, holy crap, there was a car behind me out of nowhere, honking its horn. It startled me. I looked again and saw an old, beat-up Toyota covered in dust and mud, like it hadn't been washed in ages and had been bouncing along rough mountain roads. I was puzzled. I hadn't noticed anyone tailing me. Maybe I was too focused on the road ahead, or the twists and turns hid it. But at the same time, I felt relieved. I'd been getting more anxious the deeper I went into this desolate place, and now I wasn't alone. Then a middle-aged guy stuck his head out of the driver's window. I couldn't make out his face, but he waved and shouted, "Hey, buddy, why'd you stop?" I yelled back, "The road's too narrow up ahead. I'm not sure if it keeps going, I'm hesitant." He laughed and said, "Keep going, don't worry. I've driven this road before. It's fine, just push forward." Figuring he was a local, I decided to trust him and pressed on. I drove for about half an hour. The uphill climb shifted to a descent not toward the mountain's base, but deeper into its heart. The tall grass, nearly 2 meters high, flanked both sides, blocking my view and scraping my mirrors loudly. I regretted this, my poor car paint, but there was no turning back now. The light outside dimmed as I checked the time, 6:47 p.m. I'd left the highway just after 6, and in half an hour, I'd done nothing but dive deeper into this mountain. If it got dark, I'd be stuck on this unfamiliar road with no villages or help in sight. I swore to myself, if I had the chance to choose again, I'd rather pee in the car than exit the highway. Glancing in the mirror, I saw the car behind me had turned on its headlights, swaying as it followed. That calmed me a bit. Someone was still with me. I flipped on my own lights, cranked up the music a few notches to shake off the creeping fear, but it didn't help much. The worse the road got, the colder my heart felt. After a bit more driving, the sky darkened completely. The grass ahead gleamed under my headlights, but the rearview mirror showed nothing but pitch black, no sign of the other car's lights. My stomach dropped. The road was overgrown with weeds now, scraping my undercarriage. I figured the guy's old car was just slow, so I eased off the gas to let him catch up. 10 minutes passed, no sign of him. It was a single road. He couldn't have passed me. Did his car break down? I couldn't exactly reverse on this slope, and no way was I getting out here. With no choice, I kept going. After a big turn, the road suddenly widened, and the light brightened a bit. Under the moonlight and my headlights, I saw what lay ahead and slammed on the brakes. The path opened up, but it was lined with graves. Mounds of earth, some looking fresh, were scattered messily on both sides, with white paper money strewn about. It was chilling. I whipped around to check behind me, no trace of that guy's car. What now, keep going or turn back? I hesitated, then checked the map. I was less than halfway through. The graveyard wasn't huge, and I could probably drive through quickly. Waiting around wasn't an option, and who knew what happened to that guy? Gritting my teeth, I floored it. The road flattened out, and I sped up, graves whipping past me. I should have been out soon, but the fog ahead thickened, so dense I could barely see 10 meters. My headlights only caught a few feet of road. Then, out of nowhere, I saw something on the left, a figure hanging from a tree in midair. Panicked, I swerved right, hit the brakes hard, and the car skidded a few meters with a loud bang. Something had hit, or maybe a tire blew. I lurched forward, nearly smacking the steering wheel. What the hell was that? The car stopped, headlights pointing at the figure. I squinted. It was just vines dangling from the tree, with thick leaves that looked human from a distance. False alarm. But what about that crash? Worried about a flat tire, I drove a little further. Yep, it was blown. I had to get out and check. The tire was completely deflated. No driving on that. Time to swap in the spare. I headed to the trunk, glancing back instinctively. A grayish-black shape flickered in the distance. Probably just my nerves again, like the vines, I told myself. I grabbed the spare and jack, desperate to get out of there. But the ground was soft, too soft. The jack kept sinking, unable to lift the car properly. I was freaking out. The silence was eerie, no crickets, nothing. With the jack useless, I needed something solid to prop it up, stones or a slab. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and searched around the car. Nothing. Then I eyed the graves. Some had stones or bricks on them. I'd seen it before during tomb sweeping. Looking back, I could have used branches instead, but I wasn't thinking straight. Terror had me in a chokehold. Phone in hand, I ventured into the graves, scalp tingling with fear. It felt like a scene from an old Hong Kong horror flick, some kid with a flashlight checking tombstones at night. I must have looked just as ridiculous. After checking a dozen graves, I found nothing. Finally, at one mound, I spotted half a stone slab in the ground. It looked old, the writing faded. I hesitated. It seemed sturdy, the right thickness, and probably wasn't a tombstone. I bowed to the grave a few times, muttering, "Sorry, emergency here. I'll borrow this and return it later. Please don't mind." Then I picked it up and hustled back. By then, thicker fog had rolled in. I couldn't tell which way was which. It was pitch black. I wandered the graves with my phone, lost, until I stumbled onto a road. Left or right, both ends vanished into the mist. I picked right on a hunch. As I walked, a song drifted from the fog ahead. My scalp prickled. Who'd be singing out here? A ghost. My legs wobbled, but I couldn't run. Staring into the haze, I saw two faint lights blinking, growing closer, the singing louder. Soon, it was clear it was that guy's car, blaring some old tune. I nearly died of fright. I flagged him down in the middle of the road. He looked startled too, poking his head out. "Hey, buddy, what are you doing here? Where's your car?" "I got a flat," I said. "Came looking for something to prop up the jack and got lost." "Wait, you were behind me the whole time. Where'd you go?" He chuckled. "This old Toyota's a relic. It stalled back there, took forever to restart." I flashed my lights for help, but you didn't stop, just kept going. Embarrassed, I said, "Oh man, I didn't notice. You disappeared, so I thought you'd left." He pointed out I'd gone the wrong way. My car was in the opposite direction. "Seriously?" I can't even pick right in a 50-50 shot. He offered, "Hop in, I'll take you back." Grateful, I climbed in, thinking how lucky I was to run into him again. His car was filthy worn interior, dust everywhere, and a weird, musty smell. Why not wash it? It rattled and creaked like it might fall apart, but he just sang away, ignoring me. His voice was awful, but having company eased my nerves. Between the bumpy road and my exhaustion, I dozed off listening to him. He shook me awake. "We're here, get out." Groggy, still clutching the stone slab, I stepped out and my car was right behind his. That didn't add up. It's a single road my car broke down. I went the wrong way, met him, but how'd he get past my car? There was no room to pass, and I'd left it running with the lights on so I could find it. Who turned it off? I didn't dwell on it. He was helping me swap the tire, and I just wanted to leave fast. While we worked, I chatted him up. "Where are you from? How do you know this road?" He said, "Used to haul freight through here all the time. Know it like the back of my hand." We got the tire on quick. I thought about returning the slab but figured I'd get lost again, so I left it by the road, bowed a few times, and said some apologies. Back in my car, he told me to follow him. I did, but his car sped up way too fast for that junker. I floored it, flashing my lights and honking, but he didn't react. On a wider stretch, he bolted, and soon I couldn't even see his taillights. How'd that wreck move like that? 10 minutes later, I hit a paved road, a village, finally. The GPS kicked back in with a new route. Relieved, I followed it toward the highway. Thirsty and sweaty from the ordeal, I chugged 2 bottles of water. On the highway, I relaxed a bit, but soon needed a bathroom break. I stopped at the nearest service area, grabbed some food, and rested in the car, still shaken. Curious, I checked the dashcam footage. The early mountain road part was normal, but then it got creepy. The tire change segment showed me alone, talking to myself, no sign of the guy or his Toyota. I remembered him replying to me, but the audio was just me. How? Freaked out, I couldn't scream, just froze. The dashcam felt cursed. I scrambled to shut it off, yanked the memory card, and chucked it out the window. Still terrified, I smashed the screen with my fist, cracking it. My back felt cold, like something was in the back seat. I checked the mirror, then turned nothing. Nausea hit, maybe stress. A Buddhist pendant my sister gave me, blessed by a monk, hung in the car. As I sat there, it started swaying slowly at first, then wildly, then stopped, then swung again before going still. That was it. I bolted to the service area's crowded dining hall, sat there until I calmed down, then drove home without stopping. Looking back, I wish I'd kept the footage. Maybe some expert online could have explained it. But the card's gone, the dash cams trashed, and every new one I got kept breaking, so I ditched them. Hearing my friend's story left me rattled. I love road trips: Tibet, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, Sichuan, Yunnan. I've driven them all. Once, in July 2023, I took my family on a trip in Henan. At some tiny stop, I exited the highway to refuel, but the GPS led me in circles. I ended up on a remote road, grassy, rocky, scraping the car just like my friend's tail, minus the graves. At 1 or 2 a.m., I had to guide my family to back out. No lights, no people thinking about it still spooks me. So, folks, have you had weird experiences like this? Drop me a message or comment. That's the story for today. See you next time.